Man, one of the biggest pet peeves that I hate hearing on the range is instructors saying, quit jerking the trigger. And one of the main reasons, because I think as an instructor, as somebody that's teaching a young shooter how to shoot, is we shouldn't be focusing on the negative. I shouldn't be telling you what not to do. I should be focusing on the positive. This is the things you need to do. And telling somebody to, hey, quit jerking the trigger, and you don't know how to quit jerking the trigger, is focusing on the negative. You got to focus on the positive. Well, how do you not necessarily quit jerking the trigger, but how do we put rounds where we want to put the rounds, and what should we be focused on? I just think that's keep the negative out of it.
I 100% agree with you. And I do, because what I try to say is pull the trigger straight to the rear.
That's right.
Without disturbing your sights. And the thing is, we talked about this before. Greatest practical shooter of all time, Rob Latham, Team Springfield guy, just an unbelievably talented shooter. The reason that he has won so many matches is because his trigger finger isn't what decides if he wins or loses the match. What decides is stuff that he can control better, which is how tight he grips the gun. He doesn't have big hands, but he grips the gun extremely tight, so when he does get aggressive on the trigger, he doesn't disrupt his sights. So what I would say is, can you jerk the trigger and disrupt your sights with a pistol? Absolutely. But that doesn't matter. How do we fix that? And that's what I like. Like I said, I totally agree with you on that. Sometimes I still say, I use that term, oh, hey, the guy jerked the trigger, we'll just make up the next shot. That's probably not the right way to say it, but when I am instructing, I tell people, drive the gun to the target as fast as you possibly can, let the sights settle. When they settle, pull the trigger straight to the rear. Because then, even no matter how fast they pull it, straight to the rear, nothing bad's gonna happen. And on the carbine, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
It's more, normally what happens with an AR, if a guy is pushing his shots low left, they're normally doing it with their shoulder because they're anticipating the recoil there. And same thing with the pistol. A lot of guys, their whole hand will start to move. And I notice that even with me, if I shoot left-handed as fast as I can, I'll see my whole hand moving. Well, that's the problem that shooters are having. And one of the reasons they have that is if they grip the gun as hard as they can with their firing hand, it's hard to move that finger independently. That's why I grip very, very tightly with my left hand. This hand I still grip sufficient, but then I can move my trigger finger independent of the rest of my hand.
We actually teach that the same way also.
So let me ask you this. When somebody says percentage of grip with both hands, what do you say?
I don't talk about percentage of grip with both hands. I had the privilege of taking classes and teaching under Ron Avery, and it wasn't a percent. It was more of like teaching the clamshell. Like I'm not gripping a certain percentage like 90-10 or 70-30. I've got this hand light enough, and I'm literally using like a vice grip and and pushing my palms together. So honestly, this hand's completely relaxed to keep a relaxed trigger finger. And when I vice that in, I can sit there all day. I don't start shaking.
Yeah.
And I'm completely relaxed, but I'm kind of like vice gripped in so much where you can see the stippling, my grip. It's like, holy cow, man, you were like, back in the day I was taught to gorilla grip that pistol.
Yeah.
But the more I gorilla grip, the more I shake and then have to relax and breathe and everything, and breathe whenever you shoot and all that. But the more relaxed I can stay when I shoot, I think the more longevity I have whenever I'm shooting a match or putting multiple rounds on target. So I don't really use a percentage whenever I teach that.
I use percentages only for one reason. I try to get them to know that one hand probably should grip more than the other hand. So I'll instead of saying 50-50, which I do believe is wrong, instead of saying 60-40, a lot of times I'll say 70-30. Okay, are you getting it that more grip here, less grip here? Even if it's just a little bit less, as long as you can move that trigger finger. And a lot of that depends on what kind of trigger you've got as well. Some triggers are less forgiving. You're shooting a 1911, which is a very, very forgiving trigger. I mean, it's the best trigger in a pistol that there is. I'm shooting a Gray Guns trigger in this gun, and that's a pretty forgiving trigger too, but it's not a 1911 trigger. So some of those guys that show up with a Glock trigger that's like, when I have bad dreams, it's always that I can't get my trigger pulled, because that's something I think about a lot. Like, I've got to pull that trigger straight to the rear. One of the ways that I once saw a guy demonstrate this that I thought was pretty interesting, and I'm going to get this pen out of my pocket real quick here. So a guy named Mike Voigt showed me this trick. He said, I want you to pull your trigger straight to the rear. So he put a pencil in his hand and he said, if you pull that, it's hard with this because it's not weighted. If you take a pencil, you can do this. And you can see how I can pull that straight to the rear. If you're doing this or you're doing this, you're not pulling the trigger straight to the rear. And you can actually feel that on your trigger if you really concentrate. So pulling the trigger straight to the rear, like you said, don't say jerk the trigger, but I want to see you jerk the trigger. I want to see you grip and then jerk it as hard as you can and see what happens.
Okay. Now, do you want me to jerk the trigger without disturbing the alignment?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. So I usually do a drill whenever I do this, and usually on the drill. Now, my timer
Works.
well, not only works, but it's on it's not a delay, so it's instantaneous.
Okay.
So I will, whenever I teach this, I'll have the student put the gun on target.
And then you pull their trigger?
No, you're going to push that button as soon as I hear that beep. I'm going to pull this trigger as fast as I can, jerking the hell out of it. I'm trying to get the fastest time possible. There's no applying pressure, 1 pound at a time, or I'm just jerking the hell out of it. Excuse my language.
So with this, are you telling them to have the finger on the trigger or not?
Just for this drill.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to, I don't want that reaction time of putting the finger. Now, I'm not prepping the trigger.
But they're actually touching it, not
I'm
just
touching the trigger.
Okay,
exactly.
perfect. All right, so we're going to try this out and see what happens. Shooter ready?
Yes.
Stand by. Oh, it's on delay.
Shouldn't be. Okay.
You're kind of slow, bro.
That's a really slow pull. I'm going to go ahead and let you touch that that button again.
Shooter ready. Stand by. 0.19. Let's do it again. Stand by. 0.18. That's awesome. Stand by. 0.16. You got any more in you?
My arms are starting to get tired.
Okay, let's go. Let's stop
1911.
there.
But I can go back. But I'm literally jerking that trigger. As soon as I hear the button, I'm pulling that trigger as fast as I can, without, hopefully, that's my point of aim, without disturbing the alignment of the sights of the target.
Go ahead and holster up real quick. I want you guys to take a quick look at this target. Okay, so that is as fast as he can make it happen. Okay, think about that. 16 hundredths of a second. That's fast. That's really fast. You're supposed to say, yeah, I'm fast.
Oh, well, I'm getting old. I would like to go. I think the more I do this, probably the faster my react. That's all based on reaction time.
I'm an old guy, so let me see what I can do.
All right.
So you
put me in my place.
What's that?
Put me in my place.
No, that's very, very fast. So I've got so I'm not prepping the trigger, right?
Correct.
Okay, shooter's ready.
Stand by. Stand by. 0.24. Stand by. 0.23. Stand by. 0.17.
And you can see what happened to me on that one. I actually did disturb my gun on that shot there. So he's literally twice as fast as me on that drill. He can pull the trigger twice as fast.
But there's probably less movement in my trigger also.
Yeah.
20.
That's what I'm going to say. It's the gun.
That's my.
Let me see your gun real quick. Let me see your gun real quick. I think it's me. I don't think it's.
I'm going to say it's you.
I don't think it's the gun. I'm going to shoot this once just to see where I'm hit. Okay. Ooh, that's sweet. Shooter's ready.
Stand by. 0.16.
It's the gun.
We're going to turn you into a 1911 guy.
I am a 1911 guy. I've been trying to get past that. Now I'm, oh man. Yeah, I think that this drives home the point that, I mean, he's doing that and actually it is the gun. He's got a cheater gun. Actually, CCPE, you know what that stands for?
No.
Cheater, pumpkin eater. So bottom line is,
adults here.
hey, that's the gun he brought to the fight. If you brought a Glock to the fight, or you bought a 320 or whatever that has a trigger that's not a 1911 trigger, you shoot the gun you brought to the fight. That's the gun he's got. He is literally twice as fast to take up that trigger as I am. Now I'm gonna do different things to cheat when I'm actually shooting, which is I'm gonna be taking up the slack in my trigger. He's gonna be doing the same thing. But the bottom line is, this shows you right there that with a good grip, and actually my last shot I saw a movement in my sights because I relaxed my left hand. And that's the other thing, students will actually see that, and you'll see it.
And that's good that I see a lot of instructors out there that aren't shooting these drills, and we're out there demoing, and when you demonstrate these drills, we're there to train, we're there to learn, we're there to make mistakes and learn from that stuff. So these students, they see that we're human, and that's okay too, because I'm out there, I'm not training my students, I'm training with my students.
So you mean that as an instructor, you actually shoot in front of your students?
Every drill. Is that
wow,
crazy?
Man, yeah,
Every
isn't
drill.
that crazy that we do that?
Sometimes you make mistakes.
Yeah, it's fun though. It's I went to a class one time and the instructor shot 1 round in 3 days. And I lost respect for that guy because he would not demonstrate. And if you can't demonstrate, I'm sorry, I've heard guys say, well, you can be a great instructor without being a great shooter. I'm going to disagree with that a little bit.
I agree.
So anyway, that was awesome, man. I appreciate you you showing me that drill. I've seen that drill before. I don't use that drill much, but that's a very good, that's a good way to really drive home that point.
Yep. Because you can't, I mean, we were both jerking the trigger, which proves we can still put rounds on target, jerking that trigger, but what aren't we doing? Disturbing our sight, the alignment of our sights to the target. Yep. We're minimizing that as much as possible. And that can make all the difference in the world. So I appreciate it, and thanks for doing the drill. And thanks for watching, and check out more videos at ZERTnation.com.
And I'm Instructor Y. We'll see you on the range.
And that's Instructor Y. Spell out the word, not the letter. And I'm Mr.
Yeah, man,
X.
I'm not a letter, bro.
I know, you're
I'm
the
Y.
word.
That's right.
Word.